Hi everybody, this is Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today what I want to do is that I want to give beginners in watch collection some what I wish I knew when I first started. And also too, how to avoid some of the pitfalls. But to get started, what I want to do is I just want to talk about some of the basics, and so we're going to do that first. Okay, one of the first things that's extremely important for beginners to learn is that when you wind your watch, never wind it while it's on your wrist. The reason for that is that you're liable when you wind your watch, you can do it with or without gloves. I prefer gloves. Is that just wind it. If you do it while it's on your wrist, you're liable to bend the stem, and even bending it a little can decrease the lifetime of your watch, at least your watch's stem. Then you have to go buy a new stem. Okay, another thing is that you want to probably, as your collection gets bigger, you want to put it into some kind of case with a little piece of glass on top so you can see them. Now, when you store your watches, if they have a gaiter or a leather band, do not buckle them. Your buckle will leave a little crimp in it, and so all you got to do is just wrap it around like that, and put them in there, and this will keep them nicely. Now, if you have a metal bracelet, on the metal bracelet, it's fine to go ahead and close them up. The same is true if you have a deployant strap on your watch. It's okay to close those up because that doesn't your deployant already has the strap cranked where it's going to be holding it, so you don't have to worry about it. It holds a little better too. Okay, the other thing that you probably want to do as your collection grows, some of your watches you're going to want to give them a rest, and this is called rotation. For example, this one is out of rotation, and it's none of the parts are moving. It's just sitting there, and this will help you with your keeping your watches longer. At least one watch. If you wind every one of them every day, this is somewhat problematic. I like the ones that are out of rotation, I like to wind once a month just to keep the oils and the juices flowing every now and then. So I do it at the first of the month. I also use jeweler's gloves or watchmaker's gloves. Actually, they're more jeweler's gloves just for handling the watches. These and for winding them. Some of these watches, like this 7-day Beauvais and this Vacheron Constantin Historiques Americain 1921, these watches take a lot of winding. All right, and so you can wear out your finger. On this particular one, this Vacheron Constantin 1972, it's got a little winder. You have to wind it by putting your finger underneath, and you can saw your finger off if you don't have something on there. And this Harbring 2s have a very tight winding, and they require a lot of winding pressure. So your gloves are good for that too. And also too, you don't get them gummed up with fingerprints and everything as much. Okay, another, and you want to have plenty of little cloth around to keep everything nice and clean. The other thing you're going to need is some kind of loop to take for a close examination of something. The two that I have here, one is you use with the hand, and this is a 10X. A 10X is is sort of is not something I use a lot. This one's pretty nice. It's got a little light at the bottom, and I can turn on the light, and I can look at all the nooks and crannies. But the ones that I like are about, between 3 and 5x. And this one I particularly like because it's rubberized here, and so it's a lot easier on your eye to hold it in there. I also have a wooden one, and the wooden ones are also very comfortable. Another handy tool to have for working with watches and looking at your watches is a combination light and magnifying glass. This particular one, you can close it and it's on a gooseneck, and so you just pull it around over your head and it'll work like an overhead light. Or you can bring it down and look at your watches with it, turn it on, and it's very easy to see everything. Another kind of thing that's I tend to use a lot is just a regular hand, like I guess sort of like a Sherlock Holmes magnifying glass. All right, another thing that I think is important for beginners is getting some books. I've got one I can recommend is this one, the Wristwatch Handbook. Got a lot of pictures in it, and it has all of the basics that you're going to need to know about watch collection. It's got everything that you need to know to get started in watch collection. And so that's something else that I would recommend for a beginner getting started. For all of these things, online is where I think you'll find just about everything you need. Certain brands, for example, Beauvais and Parmigiani, both of these are really excellent high horology watches, but the chances of their being available in your local watch shop are not very good, but you can find them online. And of course, if you join, there are a lot of Facebook groups that you can connect up with, and there are a lot of online, as you probably watching this one, there are online videos that talk about these things. And the main thing is in watch collection is to learn as much as you can. There are so many ways that you can get less than what you want. I'll put it that way. This particular watch, Parmigiani Colpra Grande XL, this watch was not one that everybody was rushing to get, but it's an excellent watch, and I know that because I spent a lot of time learning about Parmigiani, how they're made, who made them, and so forth. And it took me a long time to get this. All of these watches are pretty expensive, but some of them are really good buys, and it usually takes patience. This one was one such watch, and I got a heck of a good buy on it. But it took me months of watching and waiting and some negotiation, but I was finally able to get it. Sometimes you can, obviously. Sometimes somebody else will get it if they offer more. But generally, watches come and go. And so if you're patient, you'll find what you want, and you'll find the kind of deal that you want. Next, what I want to do is talk about watch ranking. And ranking a watch is for trying to get some sense of what a watch brand is worth. In other words, should you pay a lot or expect to pay a lot, or should you just pay a little? To give you a sense of the value of the watches that you may be buying, I put together a chart here for you and divided them into 4 categories: exceptional horology, high horology, strong horology, and standard horology. Your exceptional horology is your most expensive, your very best watches. They're small in number, they're high in price, but they have some very interesting innovations and very, very fine finishing on them. High horology has excellent finishing, and they're sort of a step below, and some of them, like Patek Philippe, will sort of some of theirs go up into exceptional horology. Strong horology is essentially watches that make their own movements, and they do a good job of it. They make that's why they're called strong. They're all what's called in-house or manufactured movements. Rolex, Zenith, Seiko, Harboring 2, all of these are strong horology. Standard horology, companies like Rado, Gucci, Bell and Ross, Doxa, these Longines, these watches all use somebody else's movement. And by somebody else's, I don't mean like they're not going to use one from high or strong horology, but rather they're going to find some that are sort of mass produced and relatively inexpensive. There's a number of the companies go from more than one. For example, Nomos has some in standard horology, a lot in strong horology, and they just poked up into high horology with some really couple wonderful watches. Same with Chopard. Maurice Lacroix has begun producing their own movements, has moved up to strong horology. Patek Philippe, like I said, most of theirs are in high horology, but they have some that are exceptional. Now, ones in the exceptional horology, R.W. Smith, F.P. Journe, all of them are there. They rarely make one that's less than that. Another representation I put up there for you is one that shows some watches from each one of them, the categories. At the bottom, you have standard horology, and the looks of the watches, some of the standard horology watches are very good looking. And for example, Rado has some ceramic cases they've done. They've done a lot of experiments with different kinds of casing and some interesting things. They just never will make their own movements. Rolex, on the other hand, makes a wonderful movement, but some of the other kinds of added things, either to enhancements in terms of like decorations or finishing on the movement, aren't quite the kinds of things that you get up in your high horology. High horology, you begin to have the not only some more experimental kinds of things in the movements. This isn't to say the ones in strong horology don't. It's just the level and the type that you have, as well as the finishing work and some of the other details that you have in high horology. And finally, up on the exceptional horology, these are almost individually handmade. They're really very good watches. They have fairly small numbers of them, and they're very expensive. Buying a watch. The only hope you have of not getting taken advantage of or getting screwed on a watch is knowledge. Okay, that's one. That's the most important one. If you don't know anything, you're going to be charged more than if you do. You're going to pay more for a watch that's not worth what you're paying for it. Getting an idea of the kind of level of watches you want to collect. You might want to collect standard horology ones, and these are the least expensive, and you can find some very good and interesting ones at that level. Or you might want to go after exceptional horologies. And of course, the name of the game for watch collectors, or at least most watch collectors, is to try to find the highest horology at the best price. And so you can actually buy something that's high horology that you'll find another watch in standard horology that's exactly the same price. And so this will help you make a decision. Now, one of the places that I like to go, and most other watch collectors do too, is a place called Chrono 24. And Chrono 24 is where everybody, it seems, whether you're selling it as an individual or whether you're a business that's selling watches, they all go to Chrono 24. Okay, what's Chrono 24? Well, it's an online place. And what's important for you to do at a place like Chrono 24 is compare. Comparison is very important. So let's say that you want a Fleurier watch. Okay, so you go to Beauvais, you go to Chrono 24, you click on search for the Beauvais watches, and then you search on the style for the Fleurier design, or 1930 Fleurier. So, and then you can see all of these different prices. Now, one of the other things you'll notice at the, I don't know if you can see it, they're pretty small, but you'll see these little flags at the bottom. At the far right, there's a Beauvais Fleurier 39. It's got a little U.S. flag, so that means the dealer is in America. Next to it is a Roger Dubuis, and the little flag below that is from Russia. Well, the problem is that there are all kinds of sanctions against Russia right now, and so you can't buy it from Russia unless you go to Russia, or you live in a country that isn't using those sanctions. Next to that is Poland, Virgin Islands, and then another one from the United States. So you want to look at the country that a watch is from. It'll give you an idea of how much access you have to it. Okay, so again, this is part of the research, and research is the most important thing that you can do. By the way, too, Chrono 24 has both new as well as pre-owned watches. The code word for new usually isn't new, but they'll say condition 0. And so when you go there, look for condition 0 if you're interested in a new watch. Okay, someone says, well, what about buying a watch online? Aren't there kinds of risks that you take? The answer is yes, there are some risks. One of the things you can do at a place like Chrono 24 is you can do your purchasing through Chrono 24. And what they do when you pay them, they put the money in an escrow. And then once you get the watch, if the watch is okay, it's what you want and what was advertised, then they'll go ahead and pay the seller. And so this way, but on the other hand, if it's not, and say, wait a minute, this thing is, is all banged up on the back and they didn't show the back of the watch, so I'm not going to accept it, I'm going to send it back. And so then you'll get your money back that way. So this is a safe way that you can do it online. And of course, if you do it face to face, then you can always go back to the dealer and say, hey, this isn't what you said it was. Sometimes you can have a problem that way. So anyway, places like eBay, I bought watches very successfully at eBay. Usually what I do, though, when I go to a place like eBay, or actually when I go to Chrono 24, I'll find out who the dealer is and find out where they live, and make sure they don't want me showing up at their doorstep. Okay, so again, going back, these are all tools to use, and gaining knowledge is the most important thing always in collecting watches. So, pay attention to that. People who deal in watches are business people, and they want to get the most as they can from a watch. And the people who don't ask, who know nothing, are the ones that will end up paying that. So the more you know, the better you're going to do. Knowing what's in your watch that you're looking at, you're interested in, are very important to find out about it. The book I mentioned at the earlier, Ryan Schmidt's book on the Wristwatch Handbook, you really ought to get to know that, because that'll give you an overview about movements, about things like constant force and all kinds of good things like that. So get that book or one like it. Another resource for the same kind of information is from your online watch magazines. And there are a lot of them, and they're free, so you can go out there. Now, because they're free, that means they survive on advertising. So sometimes if they're advertising a watch, they don't want to be unkind to it. Let me put it that way, all right? Okay, Facebook has a lot of watch groups. My group is called the High Horology Forum. Other ones are a little different than that. There'll be, for example, you can find a lot of Rolex Facebook pages and Rolex forums. Also, forums are these online places where a certain brand of watch that people want to find out about. The less popular the brand, the more difficult it is. On the other hand, if you're interested in Rolexes, man, I tell you, there are lots of people out there who want to talk about Rolexes. Same thing is true with Omega, Tag Heuer, Breitling. They have very, very large groups. One group that I sort of go to every now and then, there aren't too many people in it, but there are some, and some very helpful people. Is for FP Journe. Well, they don't make that many watches. There aren't that many people who have them, relatively speaking. So, depending on the watch you want to find out about, people who are selling watches are in the business of making money, not giving you all the information all the time. All right, just keep that in mind. Find people you like, you can talk to. I mean, if people give you a good break, that's part of the learning process. The learning process, though, will be much more pleasant if you do your research. Okay, well, I'd really like to hear from you, hear what your opinions are. We've been going along. You've seen things been dropping down. Go see this, go see that. Go take a look at those. Those are ways that you can save money, learn about watches, and really enjoy them because they're wonderful, wonderful things to learn about and enjoy. This is also an invitation to subscribe if you like. And we have these videos are every Friday and Sunday, so I hope to see you next Sunday. Bill Sanders for Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection.